So in this video, we're going to talk very much about why you can't turn through the golf ball and how you're going to start turning very much through the golf ball. And I'm going to go back to a drill that I did many, many years ago, probably about 2 years ago. And it was a really good drill. And I was reminded of it recently by a sort of student of mine. So I thought, let's reintroduce it as well. So turning through the golf ball, the reason why you're not turning through the golf ball and the reason why, just for clarity, you're not looking open when you hit the ball and you're more than likely looking more this way when you hit the golf ball is quite simply because you are not rotating enough at the start of the downswing. But what I'm also going to say is this is kind of like very much an orientation thing, right? So what I mean by that is when we swing back, okay, so what happens, I'm going to use this as a bit of a pointer through my chest. I'm going to do this from both face on and side on. So when we go into posture, we obviously sort of go into like a state of flexion, which basically means we're pointing downward. And then as we keep our head still, your sort of chest, if I hold that, can you see the way it will go more sort of upward, right? Because I keep my head nice and still, so we rotate more like this, round a tilt, so my chest goes up like so. So from the side on perspective, very much like this. Okay, so my chest is no longer obviously pointing down towards the ground, is my point that I'm trying to make. So the thing that you have to do when it comes to rotating is it can't be this. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to go back downward, right? So we have to go back into a state of flexion, back into a downward facing. And that's the big thing, okay? So we have to kind of go, right, we're going to go downward in a rotational manner. And the point that you have to do is you have to rotate really hard at the start of the downswing, which is what I'm going to really elaborate on in this video here. Okay, and you need to make sure you're telling yourself that right story. So the drill, and it'll be interesting if any of you have been watching the channel long enough, I wouldn't blame you if not, that you have, that you can remember this exercise. But the idea was that you place an alignment stick down on the ground, okay, like so, and then you place another one. You can either do it as a bit of a cross like I've done there, or you can position them perpendicular to one another. But quite simply, if I got set up into this area and I've got my cross now, I've got kind of like a little box in the top left corner, a little box here in the top right corner. So this area I'm referencing here, bottom left and bottom right. And the idea is that as we start the downswing, we want to get the feeling of turning the chest and the pelvis towards the target, but we have to point down in towards that bottom left box. See, where my chest, right, this is a feeling, not necessarily a reality. I want to feel like my chest is pointing into this bottom left box as my pelvis does. And if you do that, you should start to notice that your weight will move massively more underneath that lead side and you'll feel way more downward. And that's the thing that you have to do, okay? Because if you can start your downswing looking this way, then you're going to be able to rotate through the ball. If you start your downswing looking this way, then you're going to get stuck. And that's why you won't rotate through the ball. Now, and it's as simple as that. But what will often happen, and I produced a video recently, or will be releasing a video recently on how to practice, what you'd have to do is you'd have to get used to that sort of feeling first. And because most amateurs don't move like this, you're going to start to feel really steep, okay, with the club. And that's why simultaneously you have to get this feeling of keeping your trail forearm up to the sky. So see the way my right forearm points up towards the sky. So it's almost like the club shaft is pointing into the top left box. So I'm going with my body into the bottom left as the club goes into that sort of top left box, right, like so. And it's the blend of both of that that will give you this ability to be able to sequence the downswing very much correctly. Now, like I said earlier, the thing that you really want to be sort of telling yourself is rotation first, okay? So if I now sort of move this box across slightly so I can face you guys for a moment, right? So it's the same system but just from face on. So if I'm now here, so as I start the downswing, I want to move my chest and my lower body down into that bottom left box like so, and I want to get the feeling of this pointing into that top right box. But what should happen, you see, is when you start the downswing, because you should be very aggressive with your rotation, you can see the way that my chest and my shoulder moves. So the same as if I stood up straight. If I turn my chest, my left shoulder and right shoulder, but we're focusing on the left shoulder moves. So as I initiate this downswing and I rotate really hard, my left shoulder moves. And because my left shoulder moves, that's what brings the arms down. So what I'm trying to say is you really want to get used to doing this sort of type of drill and feeling, okay, when you go down to the driving range to sort of practice. But you really want to try and make sure that as you start the downswing, you want to feel like you're not pulling your arms down and you're thinking more about directing the club shaft to the right as you're turning, like that. And it will feel very, very peculiar, of course, that's the whole point. But equally, you will kind of quite quickly get used to it if you get enough repetitions under your belt. So the reason why you can't turn correctly is because you're probably neglecting understanding the orientation of it, so your angles. See you soon.